Today on the Big 3 in 30, Syracuse fires coach Adrian Autry.
Hallelujah, Syracuse fans.
Arizona State lets Bobby Hurley go after 11 seasons.
I love setting records, except when it is the biggest deficit that has ever happened in the Big 12 tournament.
And Auburn picks up a key win on the bubble.
79-61 win in the SEC tournament.
This is the Big 3 in 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Syracuse basketball went 47 years with one coach in Hall of Famer Jim Boeheim, but his replacement only lasted 3 seasons. The Orange fired coach Adrian Autry after no NCAA tournament appearances in his tenure, and Jackson Holzer goes over the decision on Locked On Syracuse.
Adrian Autry has been fired by Syracuse University. Then, not long after, you had ESPN's Pete Thamel report that John Wildhack made the call to let go of Adrian Autry, but the new athletic director, which still has not been named yet, more on that later, is going to be tasked with finding the next head basketball coach. And to that I say, hallelujah, Syracuse fans. It is very important that the new AD stepping in is the one that is ultimately hiring the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. So task number 1 is complete. It seems like Syracuse has done the right thing, which is good for all of us. But after 3 seasons, Adrian Autry is no longer the head coach of Syracuse basketball. The results, the final tally, they are in. Let's break it down here. He finishes with an overall record of 49-48, 24-34 in the ACC, 0 NCAA tournament appearances. He had 1 NIT qualification, which came back in the 2023-24 season. That was his first year with Syracuse basketball as the head coach. Remember, he was a longtime assistant and also played for Syracuse back in the 90s. But Syracuse declined that NIT invitation that year. 120-win season, same year, 2024. 2 under 500 seasons back-to-back from 2025 to 2026. The last time that Syracuse went under 500 in back-to-back seasons, you have to go back to 1968, 1969. My thoughts on this? Look, based on the results, this was the correct move. I don't think that anyone can really deny that anymore. We will break down later on in the show that it's not all on Adrian Autry, but the results speak for themselves. In 3 years, barely above 500, no NCAA tournament appearances, 2 consecutive under 500 seasons. They gave him 3 full years. They significantly upped their spending for this season. They eventually gave him a general manager to help him out with roster construction. Eventually, he had to start producing results, and he unfortunately did not. I wish him all the best. I thank him for his time here. He will always bleed orange. I understand that. We all understand that. But I think it is best for all parties involved that this is happening. And this is ultimately good for Syracuse to move on. He kind of reminds me of Kyle Neptune at Villanova, similar to Autry and how he had to take over for a legend in Jim Boeheim. So did Kyle Neptune taking over for Jay Wright. He also had 3 years at Villanova, and he could not get them to the NCAA tournament. And so last year, they moved on. And as we will discuss, hey, Villanova is back on track for this season. So overall, I am excited that this new era of Syracuse basketball is about to begin. As I have been saying repeatedly on this show for the past few weeks and the past few months, it has never been easier to get good immediately due to NIL and the transfer portal. It is no longer an era where you need to stack multiple good recruiting classes in a row in order to finally build up a program. Now, I am not saying that the next head coach of Syracuse in year one has to take the Orange to the Final Four, but they can be good right away. They can absolutely make the NCAA tournament next year with the right hire. Villanova, as I just mentioned, with Kevin Willard as their head coach, they are safely in the tournament field this year. We have seen Louisville get good right away. They let go of Kenny Payne. In comes Pat Kelsey. They're back in the NCAA tournament. NC State with Will Wade. I know it has not been a perfect season for NC State, but last year, that was a team that missed the ACC tournament. This year, it appears that they are safely in the NCAA tournament field. Virginia, that team was horrible last year, if you recall. They got blown out by Syracuse, of all teams, last year. Remember that? It was the final regular season game inside the Dome. It wasn't pretty for Virginia. Well, they bring in a new head coach, Ryan Odom, and according to the latest ESPN bracketology, Virginia is a projected 4 seed. Miami, they missed the NCAA, or not the NCAA tournament, they missed the ACC tournament last year. Bring in first-year head coach Jay Lucas, and he now has them safely in the NCAA tournament field. So if those schools can get good right away with first-year head coaches at their program, why not Syracuse? Why not us? Comment your thoughts in the comments section below, your reaction to Syracuse letting go of Adrian Autry after 3 seasons. Again, no disrespect. It was time. It was the right move. I wish Adrian Autry the best. As I said, I think a couple episodes ago, I do think he could go somewhere and be an assistant head coach and be an elite recruiter and do very, very well. Or maybe he goes to a mid-major school and he figures it out there and he rehabilitates his head coaching image and perhaps can get back into the power conference level. It's possible. I don't want to write off Adrian Autry just because it did not work out in 3 seasons at Syracuse, but it was time for both parties to go their separate ways. And it is finally a new era for Syracuse basketball, as earlier this morning on Wednesday, March 11th, it has been reported by multiple outlets that Adrian Autry has been fired by Syracuse University as the head basketball coach. What can we learn from this era? Now, I want to be very clear here. Even though Adrian Autry does deserve a lot of blame of what has happened over the past 3 seasons with this program, it is not all on Adrian Autry. Some of it is the powers above him. Some of it is the players themselves, which we have talked about repeatedly here on Locked On Syracuse as well. So there are plenty of things that we can learn, but I have narrowed it down to 3 things that we can learn from the Adrian Autry era. And the first one, for the next head coach, prior head coach experience is required. Not something that is useful, not something that is nice to have on the resume. Prior head coach experience is required to be the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. When Adrian Autry took over for Jim Boeheim, head of the 2023-2024 assistant, he earned the job. He was a longtime assistant. He was an elite level recruiter. He was a player at the university. Hindsight is 2020. I understand that. But he had earned the job. He had earned the right to be the head coach of Syracuse basketball. But as we saw over these past 3 years, there is a very big difference between being a good assistant head coach to actually being the head coach. And that's not to say that assistants can't work out. John Shire took over for Coach K at Duke. He's doing just fine. He was recently named the ACC Coach of the Year. Jay Lucas was another assistant at Duke working under John Shire, and he's a first-year head coach at Miami. Seems like he knows what he's doing. But in general, for Syracuse, given the state of the program right now, it has been 5 years since they have made the NCAA tournament. They need to hire someone with legitimate head coach experience. It's already going to be hard enough for the new head coach to turn around the culture of this program right now, to change it, to get this team back to where they once were, or at least close to what they once were. It's already going to be hard enough. Don't make the new head coach also have to learn how to be a head coach. I think under the right circumstances, it can work with an assistant becoming a head coach. But in this circumstance, I think it is required that the new head coach of Syracuse basketball has prior head coach experience. Moving on to number 2, what we can learn from the Adrian Autry era. Substantial financial support is required. Again, it was not all on Adrian Autry. This is a program that did not significantly step up its NIL and its spending until this past season, where John Wildhack, the athletic director, seems pretty confident that they were upper half in the league in spending, which is very good, I guess, compared to the rest of college basketball, considering the ACC is having a very good year this season. But prior to that, their spending was not enough. And so I think that's why Syracuse felt compelled to give Adrian Autry 3 years, because they felt that they did not do enough around him. They felt that they did not put him in the best position to succeed financially.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Arizona State fired Coach Bobby Hurley after the Sun Devils lost by 49 points to Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament. Hurley leaves ASU after 11 seasons, and Phil Mulford looks at what's next on Locked On Sun Devils.
I love records. Records are great. I love setting records, except when it is the biggest deficit that has ever happened in the Big 12 tournament, and we're on the losing side of it.
Yeah, I mean, a game was played today. Can't say for a matter of fact that both teams gave it their full effort, but one thing's for certain, and that is that this is a almost poetic end to this, to what might be the end of the Bobby Hurley era. There's all these rumors floating around. We'll see in the coming hours, but in the past, 2 out of the last 3 games, you've played Iowa State, and you lost by a combined 70 points to the same team. And one of them was a 21-point loss, doing some quick math, a 49-point loss in Kansas City to the Cyclones. And I asked you a question before the show started, Phil, and that was, when you get your butt whooped, how much of it is on you and how much of it is on how good the other team is? And you said, you had a very good point. Iowa State is not 50 points better than this Arizona State team.
Hell, I mean, we went and we were up 3 of them at the half in the Hilton Center, right? In the Hilton Coliseum or whatever it's called on senior nights. And we're up 3 at the half, and ASU's firing on all the cylinders. We're shooting 60% from the field. And then the next three halves of basketball are some of the worst basketball I've ever seen in my life. Like, I do not want to. I mean, look, these players, they've played their hearts out this year. I'm not trying to denigrate them, but when you have more turnovers, when you give up more turnovers in a half, then you score points in a half, something is going wrong. That's not an effort question. I mean, yes, it was very clear that at the end, by pretty quickly into this game, ASU had kind of given up. But that's not a points, like, that is not a effort problem right there. That is a coaching problem, and that is a scheming problem. If you watch this game, ASU was starting their basketball behind the half, or they were starting their offense behind the half court line because Iowa State's defense was so oppressive. That's a scheming problem. All right, Bobby Hurley or whoever's drawing up the plays there had to have something prepared for that. And it just, more turnovers than points through the first 10 minutes is insane.
Yeah, and we thought the story going into this game would be how ASU would stop Iowa State defensively. Well, it turned the other way around, because how does Jop and Mo Odom only combine for 10 points? Wait, 10 points of the 42 scored. The
important question here, how does Odom only have 2 points when he fouls out?
Yeah.
He fouled out of that game, by the way. I don't think he's fouled out. I should have checked this before the show. I don't think he's fouled out this year in any game.
He only played 30 minutes. Only played 30 minutes. He's never done that. Lowest minutes total.
Plus, flagrant foul by Jackson. I think Jop got it. We had 2 technicals, one on Jop for responding, one on Hurley for being Hurley. And look, I am so frustrated right now, and I think you are too, because we've seen what the Sun Devils can. We've seen what Jackson. We've seen what Johnson. We've seen what Pig Johnson and Odom and Jop can do in big games this year. Look, Kansas, Texas Tech, even first half against Iowa State. And then it just disappears. It all goes away. Even in the Baylor game, I mean, their season was on the line. They played that game, even if it was a little bit sloppy at the end. They played it so much better than they had in the regular season. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, great. We might not beat Iowa State, but I think it's going to be competitive.
Yeah, I agree. That there's few words that can express what's going on, but to just nail at the point on how atrocious this game was, 5% from beyond the arc. Garabovich had the only 3-pointer, 1 for 19. But to like shed some light and shout out a Sun Devil that had a good game, Santiago Truitt. Yes, I know 2 for 6 from the field, but he played ASU's game. He got to the free throw line 10 times. There was only one other Sun Devil to go to the free throw line in this game, and it was Alan Mukeba. ASU only went to the line 12 times, and 9 of the 11 makes that ASU had was Santiago Truitt. I mean, shout out to Truitt leading the way. He's kind of he's been a starter for the Sun Devils for a majority of the season, but he's more so done his role, filled in the gaps, shined in the moments when he's allowed to shine. But he was the main offensive force in this game, and he led the Sun Devils with 13 points, which is not a low scoring total, and it makes sense because the scoring total for the Sun Devils was an abysmal 42.
Yeah, you talk about 5% from beyond the arc here, Parker. You know what's the even more depressing stat? 0%. Because that was the first half. Man, I made the mistake of looking at a live thread about this game on the college basketball subreddit, and the Arizona fans were having a field day, posting screenshots, calling out the bad stats, which is fair enough. It was miserable. I really wanted to turn it off. I couldn't because we had to go talk. We had to be prepared to talk about this at the end of the day. But Parker, more generally, what a fitting ending, right? I hate this. This is not fun. It is not a fun time to be a Sun Devil basketball fan today. But as we take a look at Bobby Hurley, if you want to put a nightcap on all of this, this was a game that was undisciplined. This was a game that was a bunch of people trying to take their shots and see if it was going to happen or not. This was a game with technical fouls, flagrant fouls. And as much as I hate to say it, because I think Bobby Hurley's highs have been awesome, and I really enjoyed his first, couple of 5-6 years here. really up through COVID. Is that not emblematic of the Bobby Hurley experience? Is that not emblematic of what we've been getting out of him for the last, really his entire tenure?
It's a perfect reflection. And as much of the first 3 quarters of the game against Kansas and Texas Tech were the highs of the Bobby Hurley era, where it's teams that don't really have the talent of the other teams, but are still bringing it to the other guys and being like, hey, we're going to take you down. We're going to storm the court. Games like this, where it's a 91-42 loss at a neutral site, are just so humbling. And it humanizes what it's like to be an ASU fan, because now it's just like, okay, it's the final nail in the coffin. If there was any doubt that this team needs to move over with, it's this. Because every single problem that Bobby Hurley's had, the chemistry, not reaching his guys, coaching, culture questions, it came through in this game because their team was outcoached, they were outplayed, and they were undisciplined. And if you lose in all 3 facets of those games, you're not gonna win a basketball game. Not gonna win a basketball game, and you're not gonna establish a culture, and you might lose your job.
Yeah, and before we move on and start talking about the future a little bit, I do want to take a moment to talk about the team as a whole, because this was not last year's team. This was not the number 7 ranked recruited team in the country. Look, Pig Johnson, who was probably the second most impactful player this entire year behind Mo Odom, coming off the bench every single game, having these big games. He was picked off like an Instagram reel by Bobby Hurley's son playing the NIA, and he comes in here, never recruited, has a great year. Same is true of a lot of these players. And that is also, I think, emblematic of the last 9 years. You get these guys that maybe should have gotten a bigger shot than they got, but they go and they take advantage of it and they play well. And I just feel bad for them. Like, yes, Peg Johnson had the flagrant, and that's not great. Frustration's there. There's a technical job. Shouldn't have said whatever he said. Don't know what he said. But these guys come in, and I think they had the talent. I think they had the work ethic to go hang with Iowa State. I think they were just let down. Something was wrong. And yes, 24 hours after playing an emotional game is not easy. But I think they were just let down. So all the credit in the world to these guys. This was a tough season. I thought, on a whole, I think I was pretty impressed with what we were able to put together. But
this is what, to your point, this is one of my favorite ASU teams out there. All the credit to all the guys. I know we kind of give them a hard time, but it comes from a place of passion because we see the how hard these guys work, and we want them to do well. And it's just a shame that their season might come to an end. We don't know with what tournaments they might get invited to later on, but that's a big question mark where their coach will go, how many of them will stay. But as you said, these guys are dogs, and they fight hard, and they were an enjoyable team to watch. But it's a sad note to end on if this is the last game that they played, because there's only 3 times that they've been boat raced, and that was BYU, Houston, and Iowa State. And by boat raced, I mean from beginning to end, there was no shot. Only 3 times this season, and it's a shame that what might be the last game of the year was one of those boat races.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Auburn sits squarely on the NCAA tournament bubble and got a key win over Mississippi State in the SEC tournament to help its resume. Zach Blackerby recaps that win on Locked On Auburn.
Auburn's 79-61 win in the SEC tournament over Mississippi State. Game of runs. Auburn had several, especially to end the first half there. I think they ended the first half on a 7-0 run. And then it was a bunch of different runs that they had there in the second half. In a game, it's the first time we've been able to say this for a while, a game where you had to win to keep your tournament hopes alive, they were able to pull out a win. And the way they did it in the second half is telling that this team is not ready to give up or mail it in yet.
This is going to sound really controversial or maybe not a good take, but I think as great as they played in that second half, and you'll give the numbers in a second as to what Auburn did in the second half from a outscoring, the 7-0 run at the end of the first half to me was just as crucial, because you don't put yourself in the position, in my opinion, to go on that run in the second half if you go in at halftime down double digits. This team, I don't know, I know last time they played Mississippi State, they were down double digits at halftime and came all the way back to take an 8-point lead. But with a short bench and lack of depth, you're asking too much. So that 7-0 run, and then you get in the locker room and rest those legs, got them right back in. Okay, all we got to do in the second half is win the second half by 6 or more, and we win the basketball game. And boy, did they ever.
Right, and they closed it out, right? Mississippi State kind of had a mini run with a few minutes left to go, and then they did not score a field goal in the last 4 minutes, or 3 minutes and 59 seconds, I think is what Stat Broadcast says. And then Auburn finished on a 6-0 run to say, hey, no, you're not coming back. We're going to solidify this, and we're going to play for our tournament lives tomorrow against Tennessee in Nashville. So, but yeah, you're right. Auburn went into the half down 3. But imagine if that 7-0 run hadn't happened. You're looking at you're down 10, or maybe it's not as dramatic and you're down, 6 or 7 points, and then outscoring them 49-28 in the second half. To me, I mean, obviously that was the difference. And you saw different guys step up at different moments. Keyshawn Hall had a big 3 kind of in the midst of it. Obviously, Overton had a really impressive game. There were different pieces. Keyshawn Murphy, kind of a revenge game against his former team. He had 15 points on 6 of 7 shooting. You saw different guys step up. Daryl, in this team down the stretch, has not had different guys step up.
Yeah, it makes it all the more important too, because you're only playing 7. And I think Mashalik played really well off the bench. I got to give him his props. It may not pop on the score sheet, but I think he played one of his better games of the year, and it was able to keep Tahad rested. And keep in mind, now you're playing back-to-back games, and you're going to do that with a short bench is brutal. So you got to have guys come in, even if they just eat minutes. Look at plus minus. Did they extend the lead when he was in the game? Did they give the lead away? I think it was one of his better games. I really believe that the way Auburn won this game going away, winning it by 16 and not see, last time they didn't put their foot on Mississippi State's throat. They had an opportunity to cut the head off the snake, and they let them get back in with an 8-0 run and win the game in Starkville, right? This time they said, no, we're up 6. We cut it to 6, and then bam, went on that nice 7-0 run. And next thing you know, it's 13. And I think they took Mississippi State's soul at that point.
Yeah, they did. They certainly did. And I hope this one was somewhat personal. I mean, they got embarrassed when they went to Starkville a few weeks ago. And this was against a team that, if they take care of business in that, they're in a totally different scenario. And maybe that loss turned into extra losses down the stretch against other teams that you had no business losing to, especially some of those at home, like Ole Miss. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of happy that we saw different guys consistently find ways to score. I mean, Overton didn't have the most efficient day, but still ended up with 22. Pettiford, not super efficient, but got to double digits. Keyshawn Hall actually only shooting at 9 times to get to 14 points. Like, I'm happy with all of that.
He had 5 late in the game, and you blink, and he's at 14. And so,
I mean, that's what he does, though, right? Whether it's good or bad, that's what it is.
But typically, when that happens, it's either garbage time points that it makes a 20-point lead to 10, makes it look better, or he puts games away. And I've said all along, one thing about a game like this, it's not that you score on the score sheet, it's when you score. And credit to him for scoring at a very crucial time in the basketball game.
Yep. So obviously taking on Tennessee next. Is that it? Like, is Auburn in or out with their game against Tennessee tomorrow? That feels dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
It feels extreme. But looking at narratives, that kind of feels like that's where we're at.
Playing them on a neutral floor, and people can say what you want, that it's in Nashville, and that's really not neutral, but it is. It's not their home court, so it's a little bit better. Auburn was a better basketball team, in my opinion, when they played Tennessee earlier in the year, because they were coming off that win over Texas, having just beat Florida. Right. But I think Tennessee was a better basketball team then too. Remember that was the Tennessee team that went to Coleman and spanked Alabama with Bediako. And they've been struggling a little bit. Now, their best player, obviously missing the last 3 or 4 games, has a lot to do with that. Ament, I think he's supposed to be back, or Ament, however you pronounce it. I think he practiced. But look, if you're a competitor, all you want is another opportunity to beat somebody that beat you, and you get them on a neutral floor in a pretty good environment, in a game that, oh, by the way, all the experts claim that if Auburn wins it, then they've punched their ticket to the tournament. And does that sound familiar? Because the last time Auburn was on the bubble during a season, they had to beat Tennessee at Auburn to punch their ticket, and they did.
Yeah, there was also the year under Lebo where we went to the NIT and we were like on the bubble. I think we beat Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. We did. And then they were like, okay, they got to beat Florida. And then we lost to Florida.
Yeah, in the SEC tournament, that team should have been in.
Yeah,
that team got jobbed. Yeah, they got screwed. And so maybe a little bit of karma to make up for that. Of course, there was another team way back before your time, Zach, that Cliff Ellis coached, that got in, and Dick Vitale lost his mind.
Okay.
Dogged Auburn, said St. Joseph should have been in. And just really, it's surprising how the Auburn fans, forgive and forget, and just loved up on him when he came out here this year. But he was public enemy number 1, and sure. Auburn ended up getting to the Sweet 16 that year.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
With Marquise Daniels.
Yeah.
They beat Syracuse and somebody else and got to the Sweet 16. So
that was the Carmelo team, right? Syracuse.
I think the Carmelo team with Syracuse got to the Final Four, if I'm not mistaken, or the championship game. But one of those, they either beat St. Joe's in the first round, I think they did, and then they beat Syracuse to get to the Sweet 16. But Marquise Daniels played really, really well, and that was a Cliff Ellis team also.
That's all for the Big 3 and 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 and 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 NFL wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 College.